So you're back here in the episode of the Indigo Podcast, and today the title of this episode is The Importance of Priorities. So just to give y'all a little overview about what I'm about to get into. Priorities vary from person to person, but it is important for you to tell yourself what you deem important to you. Just because one person values said thing doesn't necessarily mean that you have to value said thing as well. It all comes down to what you want to do in life and what is required to facilitate a set goal or aspiration. So that could be running a sub 5 mile. Like, that's one of my goals I'm going into for track season. Whoa, now I don't know why I was struggling with that word. Track season. Going into that. Or maybe it could be getting into a new job. Maybe that could be advancing your business. Just because you want to advance your business doesn't mean that your mom wants you to advance your business. She might be, why are you doing that? That sounds dumb. You're never going to make it. In reality to you, that's what you really aspire to do. So, not everyone's going to agree on said things. It might vary from person to person, but overall, I think you get the gist of that. I just wanted to kind of explain the context about what I'm about to get into. But other than a little bit of context, the first thing I want to get into is priorities set the conditions. Because whenever I set up my calendar, I go off of a couple priorities that I set in my life, which is sleep. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be completely honest. Sometimes sleep is wonky, but I'm on a streak. The last 3 days I've been getting 7 hours. And last night I got 7 hours and 22. And this night I'm looking to get 8 because I'm going to bed 9:30, waking up at 5:30. So just trying to recover because obviously I train a lot. So got to make sure I recover. But sleep is a priority. But I'm going to be completely honest. Sleep, sometimes it's interesting. But just like anything, if you're consistent with it and you stick with it, it'll facilitate itself. Anyway, less about my sleep troubles. Anyway, sleep is still a priority. My training, obviously, school, and anything that has to do with consecration. So that's podcasting, recipes, vlogging, and anything consecration. So when you set your priorities straight, it allows you to be aware and plan ahead, so you can forward think and backwards plan. Because if you have no priorities set, your day, I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm like, what are you doing today? And they're like, I don't even know. I'm like, huh? But I mean, at the same time, when I was younger, let's say my dad asked me, what do you want to eat? What do you want to do today? I'm like, I don't know. Because the thing is, back when I was younger, I didn't really have any priorities. So I didn't really have guidance and guidelines on what I wanted to do for that day. So I just feel like if you don't prioritize things and you don't make it clear to yourself, because to you, that's going to be different person to person, most likely. So if you don't, even just jotting it down in a journal, jotting it down in your notes, or jotting it down in your head, if you don't set that standard and set, okay, I value my health, my nutrition, my family, work, school, sleep, stuff like that. Maybe I value training for football, training for soccer, stuff like that. If you don't set that standard beforehand, before you even make an action, your day is going to be pretty much meaningless, and you're going to be drifting, and you're going to be just moving from slot to slot, thing to thing, and you're not really intentional of why or what time or what you're doing in that scenario. So I just think it really helps set the conditions of the day and what the overall gist of the day is. Now, I will mention, some days just change. Sometimes, not even sometimes, things will pop up and things will change your day. And I'm going to get into more of that later, but obviously things change, but your priorities still should be present whenever things change, and you can operate it the best you can. But priorities set the conditions. It sets the conditions of the day, your weeks, your months, everything ahead of time. But second thing I want to mention, not all priorities are equal. Now, I'm not saying they all shouldn't be harped on and important. It's just the weight of them is different. So for me, training, nutrition, and consecration is a hard non-negotiable. So I kind of look at it, okay, because I'm looking at my board right now. Literally every morning, well, not every morning, every night I categorize it into 3 categories. Number 1 is non-negotiables. Number 2 is main task, and number 3 is subtasks. So non-negotiables, what I mean by that, I'm pretty sure you get the gist of it. I'll explain it. Like non-negotiable, when I hear non-negotiable, I think of literally my house could be burning down. I don't care. This is going to happen. I don't care. It has to get done. I get to do this. It has to get done. That's what it means to me. Now, main task is this is the main focus of the day. It's not as dire as the non-negotiable, but it pretty much is. It's kind of, okay, what are the first things I want to get at in the day? Now, subtasks are like, let's say it's the morning for a run and I have like a window of like 30 minutes or so. I could knock out folding some clothes, or knock out freezing some bananas, and knock out taking out the trash. Like, I wouldn't say taking out the trash is as important to me as editing a video, because that's like the main block of the day. But I think having non-negotiables built into your priorities really like set the standard and set the priority levels of, okay, this needs to get done first and then everything else will follow this. 'Cause I feel like if you do things in a certain order, let's say you took out the trash first, then you fed your dog, then you froze the bananas, your run might get pushed back to 9 p.m. I don't know, depending on how many subtasks you put in front of it. So I just think it's not necessarily saying these aren't all important, because obviously if you're putting them in your head or on a board or on a sheet of paper, they're important to you. But it's just the weight and the urgency of them, like putting them, okay, this is non-negotiable, this needs to get done like as soon as possible, or like no ifs, ands, or buts. Just putting it in certain slots, either mentally or physically, that allows you to make the best choice on when you should do this and like the urgency of when you should get that done. But that's number 2. But number 3, I think this is a big one. Not everyone will agree with your priorities. And as I mentioned before, like, I think I see this the most. I've talked about it before. I see this the most with health and nutrition and fitness. Because I think, like, a lot of people, they just think, oh, like, I'm just going to go work out. Like, they don't really think of it as a priority. In reality, I honestly think if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Because if you're unhealthy, you're not going to live as long. You're not going to have a good lifespan, or a good quality of life at all. And I feel like a lot of people want to, explore that modality of life, and everyone should. I think that's not even a question like, oh, I don't have to work out, or I don't have to eat healthy. I mean, obviously, the good thing about eating healthy, and honestly, that's just how everyone should eat. Everyone does it in such a different way. I think that's what's so beautiful about it, because obviously for me, I'm vegan. I don't eat meat, but some dude might eat fish and eat eggs and, might do milk. You can do that in a perfectly healthy way. I think that's the good thing about it. And I feel like if more people, not even if, when more people learn about that, I feel like a lot of people have, it will really shift the trajectory of how they think of it. Because it's like, oh, no, I don't have to just eat iceberg salad and eat ground turkey. I could eat salmon, I could eat tofu, I could eat eggs. It just, obviously there's some guidelines or principles. Anyway, I'm not going to get down the rabbit hole of nutrition. I just think it's a really good example. But people might comment on you eating healthy, or you going for a morning run when it's cold, and they might be like, why are you doing that? Why don't you just stay at home and be comfortable or whatever? But I mean, I think you should make the best decision based on the standard you set for yourself, and the standard you're trying to lead by example with. Because I just think a lot of people, I've kind of mentioned this before, people might be a little bit, I guess, scared or intimidated or unsure, or like they're like, oh, I don't want to do this. So I'm gonna be like, oh, why are you prioritizing your health? Why are you prioritizing school? Why don't you go out for a drink with us? Why don't you play on the game all night? And if you have friends that understand, because I have some people in my life, I'll tell them, hey, I'm about to go for a run, I'm about to go lift. They're like, all right, cool, go for it. Like, I support you. Like, I appreciate that a lot. I respect that a lot. But there's a lot of people I've come across, I'm sure there's a lot of people you've come across, or like, let's just say, oh, I got schoolwork, I'm not finna hop on the game tonight. You're like, oh, you lame. Like, why don't you just hop on the game? Like, bro, you don't got to do your schoolwork, or like, whatever. Like, obviously, people might joke around about it, but I feel like a lot of people, like, they're dead serious about you, like, being, oh, you should hop on the game. You don't have to do your work. But in reality, that's obviously a priority to you. So I just think, even though people might view certain things like you going out for a morning run, or you going for a lift when everybody's going to party, they might view it as obsessive and you being unfun and a party pooper. Obviously, there's time for that, and time for you to go spend time with others, and time for you to, branch out. But you got to hold that standard to be firm with that, because you can't just let someone say, oh, you're being obsessive, oh, you're overly healthy, oh, why are you being cognizant of what you're eating. In reality, that's, I think, what everybody should do in a different way, in a different limelight. And I just think a lot of people try and put people down so they don't hold their standard, and I just don't really think that's the way to go about it. But number 3, not everyone will agree with your priorities. I think that's a very important thing to be aware of, and don't let that dictate your end decision. But 4th thing, I kind of mentioned this, I believe, in number 2, priorities allow adaptation. Now, I do think, obviously, if you have a solid, I think, well, hold on, let me rephrase this. I think if you do have a solid list of non-negotiables, it allows you to be more flexible and allows you to have more freedom in life. And I just think it allows you to adapt and conquer things, and people might ask you to do a favor, add an event to your calendar, or just some slight changes on whatever you're doing. Because I just feel like, let's say, okay, a non-negotiable for you is a morning run. Let's just say you get the morning run done in the morning, obviously, and then you might have some like subtasks sprinkled throughout the day. But the thing is, since you got that morning run done, the subtasks, you might move that around to other days in the week. And I'm not saying you just push things off, but you can, auto-regulate whatever else you're doing. But obviously, I think the hardest part about like having a hard standard and priorities is just the act of saying no, because it is hard. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I think I experienced it today. Like this isn't a bad thing at all. I'm just saying it's like it could be used as an example. Like let's say you're talking to some people and you really like them, y'all just chopping it up. But the thing is, like, let's say that turns into like a 2 to 3, 4 hour conversation, and you're supposed to, I don't know, go feed your dog and go take your kids for a walk. Like, obviously, it's good to talk to other people, but there's some priorities and things you need to do. So sometimes you'll be like, hey, hold on, I gotta go. Like, I can't really stay for that longer. And they might be like, oh, well, stay longer. And, you feel bad because you talk to these people. At the same time, I just think learning how to say no to certain things. I don't think every opportunity is meant to be. Sometimes you have to do things that you hold dear to your heart and things that you're really set on. Sometimes you got to be like, hey, like I'm not doing that right now. I have to do something else. I have to cater to this first before I can get to you, or whatever the case may be. I just think learning how to say no and adapt to unwarranted adversity while holding the same standard, that's key. And I think it's a learning curve. You learn how to deal with that even better over time. But I'm not gonna lie, it's very hard to say no to people that you love, and they're like, hey, why don't you stay longer? Why don't you? And it's like, hey, I gotta go recover. I gotta go for a run. Now, however, I will say sometimes, like, let's say there's a wedding night and it's an after party. Sometimes you'll stay longer than you planned on, and you'll go to bed a little bit later. I think that's completely fine, but I think sometimes when you don't say no to people, it becomes a reoccurring thing, and you just start not getting stuff done. And like I said before, I think if you never get things done for yourself and people you care about and things that you aspire to do, I don't think you'll be able to do anything for anyone. So I think priorities allow adaptation, and they allow you to, auto-regulate your day. I think just saying no is a big part of that. But the last thing, I think this is also important. I kind of mentioned this too, but your priorities affect others. And I just think when you really put your energy and time into something, like I just mentioned, you'll have to end up saying no to more things you say yes to. And you'll have to sacrifice certain things in life, because kind of like how I just kind of mentioned, some nights if people want to go out for a drink or they want to hang out, you're going to have to sacrifice time with them to go to the gym, meal prep, get to bed at a fashionable time, prep for your run, all of that stuff. It's just certain things. You're going to have to sacrifice some things to be great. That's just what it is. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows that. And the reason you have to sacrifice things because you have to set the conditions for success and get one step closer to your desired outcome or lifestyle. Now, this doesn't mean just be a robot and just isolate yourself and just never talk to anyone. And I'm not saying that, but it's just things are appropriate when they are appropriate. And certain things, it's not the right time to do certain things when you're focused on a goal and you're trying to be consistently good instead of occasionally great. So I just think, obviously, your priorities are going to affect others good. Like, if you have to sacrifice things, you might view that as bad, but I just think overall the growth you'll gain as a person and just setting a standard and setting your priorities straight, I just think you'll grow more as a person, then you can put even more into other people. But that's kind of a little bit of a shorter one, but that's kind of the gist of what I wanted to say. Because I just think the main two I really see is health and like fitness. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time for that, and oh, I'm too busy. But I feel like if it matters to you, you will make time no matter what. I'm not saying you should do because the thing is, I've noticed like with priorities, Obviously, the non-negotiables get done every day. That doesn't matter. But like the main tasks, those mostly get done every day. The subtasks, those are the ones that are more auto-regulated. Like, okay, like let's say I have to fold clothes. Like that's not as important as my morning run. So I just think like being aware of that. But I just think if it matters to you, you'll make time. And I just think a lot of people say they don't have time because they're kind of a little bit fearful of going into certain endeavors, and they're kind of they're kind of unsure of how to approach it. And I feel like if you really want to learn about something, there's resources like just like me talking to you. I'm free to help anyone. So I just think if it matters to you, make time, and having priorities will facilitate you making time for things that matter to you. But that's episode 58, y'all. Just talk about priorities, the importance of them. Hope that helped y'all out and gave y'all some insight on how to set the standard, to hold the standard. But that's episode 58, and I'm gonna see y'all next time.